Welcome back to Twisted Tales of Murder. Art often imitates real life, and unfortunately for us, the following movies are all inspired by one or many serial killers. Please be advised that many of these images are disturbing and graphic. And if you want to know more Twisted Tales of Murder, please subscribe. I have a goal of 500 followers by March 1st. Help me achieve this goal while learning more about the haunting tales that are to come. The screenplay The Strangers, released in 2008, was inspired by two real-life events, the Manson family murders and the unsolved Katie Cabin murders. The film's realistic scenario of a home invasion adds to its terrifying nature. Murders committed by the Manson family in 1969, later nicknamed Helter Skelter, was organized by Charles Manson. In particular, the home invasion and killing of actress Sharon Tate was a direct correlation to the movie The Strangers. The gruesome knife violence draws close parallels to the stabbing at the Tate home. The second inspiration for The Stranger's true story is the infamous 1981 Katy Cabin murders, where 4 people were killed in a small California resort town. Disturbingly, the motives of these murders is still unknown, as the police never caught the real-life killers, and the case remains unsolved. The perpetrators were 3 masked assailants, similar to the perpetrators in The Strangers, who wandered off into the morning chill after massacring the family, simply because they were home. The movie Amityville Horror was released in 1979, and it is based on the true crimes of Ronald DeFee Jr. In 1974, Ronald shot and killed 6 members of his family at the large Dutch colonial house situated in the suburban neighborhood in Amityville. Every member of the family had been fatally shot while sleeping in their beds. The next day, he confessed to the murders, and his lawyer would later claim the demon voices in his head made him do it. The movie Scream was released in 1996, and while there have been many mass murderers, a disturbing layer to the Scream story is rooted in reality. Scream was inspired by a rash of real-life murders committed by a serial killer in Gainesville, Florida. The Gainesville Ripper was a serial rapist and murderer. Over the course of 4 days in 1990, Rowling went on a rampage where he murdered 5 University of Florida students in a spree that terrified the nation. The mask he wore was very similar to the Scream mask. The movie The Hills Have Eyes, released recently in 2006, was a modern take on the legend of Alexander Sweeney Bean, a 15th century cannibal who, along with his family, allegedly murdered over 1,000 people in the Scottish Highlands. The entire Sweeney Bean family, all 48 of them, were arrested and sentenced to death because of their considerably heinous crimes. A Nightmare on Elm Street is based on a real-life serial killer, Freddy Krueger, who allegedly killed at least 20 children in Buffalo, New York in the 1800s. A photo shows the gravestone of Frederick Krueger, who reportedly murdered the children using only a garden claw. He lived in an abandoned factory boiler room until he was caught and allegedly spent the rest of his life in a psychiatric hospital. The movie Lost Girls was released in 2020 and is inspired by the true story of Shannon Gilbert's disappearance and her mom's efforts to find her. In January of 2024, the world learned that Shannon was killed by Rex Heuermann, known as the Gilgo Beach Murderer or Long Island Murderer. He is currently standing trial for the deaths of 4 women and is suspected of killing many others. Please watch Breaking News: Rex Heuermann charged in serial murder on my YouTube channel to learn more about him and his charges. Silence of the Lambs was released in 1991 and is based on Gary Heidnik, an American murderer and serial rapist who kidnapped, tortured, and raped 6 women while holding them captive in his self-dug pit in his basement. He was sentenced to death by lethal injection in July of 1999. Heidnik was one of the inspirations for Buffalo Bill, a serial killer who kidnaps and skins women in order to wear them. Heidnik is not the only serial killer that Buffalo Bill is based on. Ted Bundy, the lady killer, is also an inspiration for the killer in The Silence of the Lambs. The true story of the movie Borderland, released in 2007, is based loosely on the life of Adolfo Constanzo, an American-born serial killer and cult leader who moved to Mexico City as an adult, where he met friends who would become his followers. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in 1974, is based on real events. It draws inspiration from notorious serial killer Ed Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainsfield, an American murderer, serial killer, necrophiliac, and body snatcher. The Frozen Ground was released in 2013 and is based on the crimes of the real-life Alaskan serial killer Robert Hansen. The film depicts an Alaskan state trooper seeking to apprehend Hansen by partnering with a young woman who escaped from Hansen's clutches. Hansen eventually admitted to murdering a total of 17 women and accompanied investigators on a helicopter flight where he pointed out the grave sites. Green River Killer is a 2005 American crime film based on the true story of serial murderer Gary Ridgway, the country's deadliest convicted serial killer. He claimed to have killed as many as 80 women, many of whom were prostitutes in Washington state, during the 1980s and 90s, although he only pled guilty in 2003 to 48 of those murders. The film depicts how Gary would approach prostitutes in bars, take them to his home, and brutally kill them, and then dispose of their corpses into the Green River, a pattern of behavior that explains why they referred to him as the Green River Killer. The Town That Dreaded Sundown, a 2014 movie, draws creepily on the real-life string of mysterious killings that terrorized people in a small town in Texas in 1946. The murder spree, known as the Texarkana Moonlight Murders, would ultimately claim 5 lives and injured many others. Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile is a 2019 American biographical true crime drama about the life of serial killer Ted Bundy. The film is based on Bundy's former girlfriend, Elizabeth Kendall's memoirs. Bundy was a serial killer who kidnapped, raped, and murdered dozens of young women and girls during the 1970s and possibly earlier. After more than a decade of denials, as he approached his execution, he confessed to 30 murders committed in 7 states between 1974 and 1978. His true victim total is unknown. Zodiac is a movie released in 2007 that is a retelling of the story of the infamous self-named Zodiac killer, who remains unidentified to this day. The Zodiac Killer is directly linked to 5 murders in the San Francisco Bay Area in the late 1960s and claims to have committed as many as 37 murders. He sent letters to publications like the San Francisco Chronicle, taunting police to catch him. He has never been caught or identified to this day. The movie Monster, released in 2003, is based on the real-life serial killer Aileen Wuornos, a Daytona Beach prostitute who became a serial killer. Aileen was convicted of murdering 6 men in Florida in 1989 and 1990. She made her living as a sex worker on the Florida highway, and her killing spree started around late November of 1989 and earned her the nickname Damsel of Death. After being arrested in January 1991, she confessed to 7 murders before receiving her death sentence. Although her sanity was questioned, she was still executed by lethal injection in October of 2002 at the age of 46. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit about how some of the worst serial killers of all times have helped influence Hollywood. Remember, like and subscribe today. Till next time, and sweet dreams.